before you said hello, before you crouched down, before the leash, the name, the car ride home. There was a single second where your dog's eyes found yours, and inside their skull, a long-prepared program started running. You don't remember that second the way they do. You remember choosing. They remember evaluating. And what was actually happening inside their mind in that single instant is something almost no owner has ever been told. The science is honest about it. The story owners keep telling themselves is not quite right. The story most of us tell goes like this. You walked up to a litter, or into a shelter, or out to a friend's living room, and a dog noticed you back. They looked at you, and they chose. They sensed something. Some unspoken thing passed between you, and you were chosen. It is a beautiful story. It is also almost entirely about you, because the version your dog was running that day had very little to do with sensing anything special about your soul. It had to do with whether you were a primate making the right kind of movements with the right kind of face. Behavioral biologists who have spent the last 20 years watching this exact moment in controlled tests will tell you something deflating and incredible at the same time. Your dog was not reading your soul. Your dog was reading your hands. And the reason they were so good at it is that they were born that way. The same program runs every time they meet anyone new, even now. That part becomes useful later, once you know what to listen for. In 2021, a research team led by Bray at the University of Arizona, working with canine companions, ran one of the cleanest tests anyone has ever run on what dogs know before they know anything. They took 375 puppies, all of them 8 weeks old, all of them raised on purpose with as little human contact as the program could manage. These were Labrador and Golden Retriever mixes. They had not been trained. They had not been taught what a finger meant. They had barely lived with humans at all. Then a researcher pointed at a hidden treat. On the very first trial, with no practice, no learning curve, no second chance to figure it out, the puppies followed the point. They read the gesture cold. A 2-month-old animal that had never been to a real home in its life understood what a human's outstretched arm was trying to tell it and walked over to where it was being told to walk. The team then ran the genetics. About 40% of the variation in how well a puppy could read a human came down to inherited DNA. 40%. That is not learning. That is not bonding. That is hardware. So when you walked up to your dog and they looked at you and tracked your hand and read your face, that was not them deciding you were special. That was a piece of equipment that had been waiting for you, factory installed, since before they opened their eyes for the first time. And it had been waiting for any human-shaped silhouette that finally walked through the door. You might think that is just what any social mammal does. Any young animal would read a human pointing finger, given enough exposure to humans. The science says no, and it says so in a way that is hard to argue with. A research collaboration led from Duke University ran a parallel study, also published in 2021, comparing 44 dog puppies to 37 wolf puppies, not wolves in the wild. Wolves raised with intensive hands-on human contact, the kind of upbringing that, if environment were the answer, would have closed the gap. The two groups got the same tasks, the same pointing cues, the same gaze cues, the same approach to a new person. On the non-social puzzles, the memory tasks, the impulse control tasks, the wolves did fine. They were not less smart, they were not less able. But when the test was social, the gap was enormous. The dog puppies approached an unfamiliar human about 30 times more often than the wolf puppies did. 30 times. Same age. Similar life conditions. The only thing that explained the difference was what kind of animal they were. Domestication had written something into the dog that the wolf, even raised by hand, could not learn fast enough to match. So the second you walked into that room, you were standing in front of an animal whose entire species had been quietly preparing to find you interesting. The wolf would have hesitated. Your dog leaned in. Here is where the science gets strange. If dogs are this wired for us, this prepared, this primed, then the obvious next step is to say they must feel us deeply too. They must read our pain. They must come running when we hurt. In 2024, Rivera and Myers Manor at Ripon College decided to actually test that. They put 35 adult dogs, one at a time, in a room with a glass-paneled door. On the other side, an unfamiliar human was either crying, real audible distress, or humming, calm and neutral. The owner was not in the room. The dog was alone. If dogs are little empathy engines for humans, the crying side should have pulled them through that door. It didn't. There was no significant difference in how often or how fast the dogs opened the door for a crying stranger versus a humming one. Their heart rates did not spike. Their stress markers did not jump. The dogs who did go through tended to be the calmer, friendlier ones in general, not the ones moved by the cry. Read that finding next to everything we just said and it does not fit. A species this socially wired should be responsive to human pain. But when the human is a stranger and the owner is not there, the wiring does not switch on the way you would expect. So, which is it? Are dogs primed for us? Or are they not? The honest answer is that the equipment is built. The bond is not. What dogs arrive with is a starting position, a genetic head start, a reward circuit that is open for business. What dogs do not arrive with is a person already loaded into it. That part is on you. There is a study from the Burns lab at Emory University, published in 2016, where 15 dogs were trained to lie still in an MRI machine, while researchers played cues that predicted either food or praise from their own person. In 13 of those 15 dogs, the brain's reward center, the ventral caudate, fired just as hard for the praise as for the food. For some of them, harder. Later, when the same dogs ran a maze with a path to the owner on one side and a path to food on the other, the dogs whose brains had voted for praise chose the owner. The dogs whose brains had voted for food chose the food. The brain knew, the body followed. But here's the part that gets missed about that study. Those were dogs who already had their person. Years of shared mornings, years of voice. The praise was not abstract, it was that voice. The bond had to be built first. The neurons were waiting. The wiring was there. The person who would turn it on was you, slowly, every day after that first second. So when you replay that first meeting in your head, you are remembering the moment a transaction happened. A decision was made. They came home with you. But on their end, what happened was different and quieter. A piece of equipment with no installed owner found a candidate. Their eyes locked onto a face that, biologically, they were already trained from birth to study. Their brain made room for a new voice to start mattering. And then, they waited to see if you would come back, if you would say their name again, if you would crouch down a second time. Every day after that first day, you were running a tiny installation, a voice they learned, a pattern of footsteps they started to recognize, a door sound that meant you. The wiring was always there. You were the slow update that turned it into a relationship. The first meeting was not the moment they loved you. It was the moment they made you eligible to be loved. Which is also why a change in how your dog meets new humans now is worth paying attention to. That openness, that natural lean into a new person, the willingness to approach a stranger and read their face, all of it is the same equipment that ran during your first meeting, just a little older. Most dogs carry it for life. If your dog has always been the one who walks up to people at the park and now hangs back, or has always been the one who studies new humans calmly from a distance and now growls, or has stopped tracking the new person's hands the way they used to, something has shifted under the surface. Sometimes it is age. Sometimes it is pain you cannot see. Sometimes it is a single bad encounter you were not there for. None of those are catastrophe by themselves, but they are signal. Veterinary behaviorists treat a sudden shift in social style towards strangers as a reason for a real check-in, not a quirky phase. The way your dog meets new humans is a working part of them. When the way changes, the part is telling you something. Go back to that first second, the one neither of you really remembers in the same way. You looked at a dog and you saw an animal who looked at you back. They looked at you and saw a face their genes had been training them to read since before they opened their eyes, a hand whose gestures they already knew how to follow, a voice their brain had a place set aside for. That single second was not a meeting. It was a doorway. They cracked it open. The years after, that was you walking through it. And almost none of those years were random. If you want more of what is actually going on inside the animal asleep near you right now, the kind of thing that quietly changes how you watch them in the smallest ordinary moments, subscribe. This channel exists for exactly that. There is more behind those eyes than anyone has told you about yet.